And what was fascinating is the coffee date went like longer than expected. She was as present as she could be. And when she was leaving, he went so cold. I barely acknowledged her. Didn't even look at her when she said bye. And what I noticed in that moment is that the pain of saying goodbye maybe is as natural as breathing. Have you ever felt like you tried to explain the way you made decisions, the way you lived in the world, the way you related with reality with the people around you, and they just don't get it? That's what today's conversation is all about. Welcome back to Grace-Led Leaders, the place for multi-passionate unicorns who are devoted to fun, to connection, to scaling our impact, our sales, and expanding our hearts all at the same time. My name is Navdeep. I've had the pleasure of speaking in 16 countries on every continent. And you can listen to me if you want to. You see that sentiment? You can listen to me if you want to. That's what's really interesting, isn't it? Because I've known there have been times where I felt like I was crazy for making a decision. I was crazy for following a path. I was crazy for getting on a plane. I was crazy for saying something. I was crazy for believing in something. And it's like the people that I loved, I would try my very best to explain it to them, my very best to bring them on board. To bring them on board. You see, even the energetics behind that statement, it's like bringing something, almost like carrying somebody. Make sense? I wonder if you've ever felt like this. And what's perhaps interesting is that if you're watching this, typically you already have some sort of track record, a foundation of what you've built. Maybe it's the current endeavor you're working on. Maybe it's the endeavor that's seducing you. It's not completely clear yet. You know what I mean. Or maybe it's a previous endeavor. Especially when we have had some sort of traction, some sort of momentum in one endeavor. And we're looking to reimagine who we are, reimagine how we live our life, or life is showering us with that reimagination, whether we like it or not. It's at those times of transition where explaining to other people that we're changing can be such a jarring experience. I know for me, I had my childhood in Malaysia. I'd say I had my I had my babyhood. What's up, hey? I had my babyhood in India, my childhood in Malaysia, my teenagehood in Australia, and now I live nomadically. And what's fascinating is whenever I go back, I'm going to go speak in Australia soon, I got invited to speak at an event there, some former mentors and people really dear to my heart. It's really quite beautiful. We're in this fun chat on Signal and we send each other selfies and memes and meme-like banter. It's cool. Anyways, when I go back to these places, especially when I'm with people who I've been close with over multiple chapters. So for example, my parents, my family, my siblings, my old friends, my cousins, there's this tension. And I understand the tension. I mentioned in another episode how I went to this one part of Bali called Ubud, and I went to a cafe and I had associated that place with a certain feeling. And when I didn't get that certain feeling that I was so excited to get, the certainty I was going to get from going to that one cafe, it's called Alchemy, you have to try it, it's called Alchemy. It was jarring. It was confronting. Fucking sucked. And so maybe the people who have been closest to me, when they interact with me, they're expecting to feel a certain way. They're looking forward, they're anticipating to feel a certain way. And maybe when you're going through a transition, the people closest to you are feeling the same way. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to meet this person. I can't wait to feel like this. And they probably don't articulate it. But remember that language is just our best bet at describing a feeling. Language is just our best bet, our best try, our best attempt at describing a feeling. It never truly does. It is the best we can do. Maybe. It's the best we've been able to do. And so I can now empathize and acknowledge a lot more, which is when I'm going through a transition, when I'm talking to people who have been there through many chapters, there is this tension of like, oh my gosh, do I even know this person anymore? So for example, my father might think, do I even know my son anymore? Who is this person? Where's the disconnection? You know, my old friend might think, do I even know Navdeep anymore? Or who is this person? They're not the same that they used to be. And this morning, I was staying with some friends in Bali, as you know, and one of their friends, so I'm staying with a couple, okay, and the couple have 2 kids, and one of the best friends of the wife came to hang out with one of the sons. The son must be 9 years old, and came out to take him on a coffee date, they call it, you know, there's like a catch up. And what was fascinating is the coffee date went like longer than expected. She was as present as she could be, and when she was leaving, he went so cold. I barely acknowledged her, didn't even look at her when she said bye. And what I noticed in that moment is that the pain of saying goodbye maybe is as natural as breathing. Wow. The pain of saying goodbye maybe is as natural as breathing. And so now I can really empathize that when I'm speaking to people and they see this evolved version of me, the potential pain of goodbye becomes apparent. The potential fear of disconnection, the potential fear of separation, the potential fear of not knowing each other truly can be so painful. And maybe it's not even a choice, maybe it's an instinctual primal thing. Because we are social animals, after all, aren't we? I like to think I'm an animal before I'm a human. And so this gives me more empathy and more appreciation and more acknowledgement as to why they may respond the way they do. You know, some people respond like they fully embrace it. Some people respond with like a distancing. Some people respond with this questioning, this aggressive, this penetrative energy, like a fight response. You know, some people don't say anything at all, but has its pent up anger. I think you could call that a fawn response, potentially. And so this helps us understand as to why people may have those responses, and it also helps me understand my own responses to when I feel the dissolving of closeness. I think it's powerful to understand why we behave the way we do. And this is my take on it. So we have an understanding now as to why this friction might be there. Now, to make this more real for you, what's been interesting with me is, you know, there was a time in my life where people used to come to me for my analytical superpowers. I would build spreadsheets, systems, dashboards, reporting, KPI-based innovations. And people would come to me for that. And now, you know, I even did the university subjects to qualify as a financial planner. I never did, like take the registration, but you understand like the extent of it. You know, I started out with a degree that I was going to major in accounting, to give you an understanding. And so this really like analytical, logical frame, you could say. Let's use the word analytical. And now I'm making decisions based on my intuition. I'm like, hey, I don't know if you know this story, but I was in Estonia, and I just got this intuitive message that I had to go to Paris. And when I went to Paris, I booked my tickets already. I told someone, they're like, oh wow, you're going for the Olympic opening ceremony. I said, I guess I am. And then I got on the plane, and then the people next to me had booked it for 6 months or something from Brazil. And then literally when the plane landed in Paris, bonjour madame, between the plane landing and me entering the terminal, so like getting off the stairs, getting in the bus, getting to the terminal, that's when I booked my ticket to the opening ceremony. Last night I did this whole exercise coming up with, I think it was like 30 different podcast topics, but yes, it helped with the marination. Yes, it helped with the massaging of the brain and the metamorphosis and the magic in my subconscious brain now. And I didn't actually know what I was talking about until, is this true? Maybe 6 minutes before this started rolling, probably 5.5. And to some people this can be crazy. And to some people living nomadically can be crazy. And to some people making decisions like this be crazy. I remember, my second relationship I was ever in, just being in this speaker career was crazy. Sometimes I have family members who still think that me charging for sharing my expertise and my learnings and my wisdom and my guidance and my space holding is crazy. And it really fucking hurts. Kind of adds to this whole loneliness dynamic. And somehow the external perception of loneliness forces me, pushes me, calls me forward to deepen my inner sense of being united with myself, my inner sense of standing for what I believe in, my inner sense of conviction. I remember once, oh my gosh, I can look back at like my second relationship and be like, wow, it was her cynicism of what I do that pushed me to believe in what I do. Same with other people in my life, even closer. And so isn't it interesting how there's a gift in that tension, isn't there? The gift of deepening our relationship with ourselves, the gift of deepening our relationship with what we're here to share in this chapter. And I also feel like there's another gift. So first, let's recap. We talked about why this goes on, this tension of sharing our new selves with people from previous chapters. The second is we shared some of my story and experiences with it, and the more obvious gifts of owning a relationship with yourself and owning the relationship with your chapter. And I also feel as our third and final point, maybe, our third point for now, lol, Thumri is an Indian style of music which talks about, it's not heartbreak, I like to call it heartwhelm. There's this yearning feeling. It's like you're yearning for your beloved, you're yearning for your lover, you're yearning for days gone by, you are in this soaking in this sojourn of sentimentality. And this feeling of yearning, I believe, is extra amplified when we have a deep sense of intimacy with something, someone, somewhere. And one way to really cultivate intimacy that I found is when we can approach moments of tension as invitations for connection. when we can approach moments of connection as invitations for tension, right? I remember I was on a cruise with my parents for a week, and mind you, this cruise was almost right after I had spent like all this travel time on my own. I had found this new chapter. People were embracing this crazy part of me that were just singing, and I'd look like I was connected to the other realm, and most of the time I'd just say random things, and people are like, oh my god, that's amazing, and I'd speak in riddle and poetry and rhyme, and people are like, oh my gosh, can I have more of that in this life that is mine? And I was like, wow, I would love to do that. But when I went on this cruise, I felt like I was being taxed, I was being fined. And somehow we got to a point after a few days where I had to draw a line in the sand. It's almost like I had felt like I had been under reprimand. I had feel like, damn. And it was in that moment, I remember we were at dinner and the tension was boiling like a stew. I could feel our anger. I could feel my anger. I could feel my anger as it grew. And finally, when I thought that I was through and I had to just go back to my room, somehow there was a moment. And there was a moment where I understood why my father was so concerned about my way of expressing myself. I understood why my father was so passionate about sharing with me what the social norms were. I understood why my mother had been so considerate for so many years to share with me as to what was the done and not done way. And I understood from their upbringing, from their experiences with not standing out too much, with not coming across as boastful, with not, being too out of the norm, with not shaking the tree too much, you know what I mean? And when I understood how they had been faced with pain from those experiences, and they didn't want their child to have that pain, and they had been protecting me from that pain even as a child, when I didn't know I had autism, when I didn't know that I had Asperger's, when I didn't know that I was different that way, they were protecting me in ways that I had no idea. They were having hard conversations, they were drawing their sword, and all these different things. And when I understood my father's protector instincts and my mother's nurturing instincts and her protector instincts and how they just wanted to protect me, and sometimes the way that they communicated their want to protect me was not received well by me and wasn't liked by me and wasn't loved by me. But even though to this day we still have that tension of, they're not the biggest fan of all the ways I express myself, and I'm not the biggest ways of all the ways that they express themselves, but I'll never forget those conversations we had at the dinner table on the cruise when they let me into their fear. To the fear of what will happen to their son when they're not there. To the fear of how will he be treated? How will he be accepted? And to their fear of, have I set him up to blossom? Yesterday I was talking to my mother over WhatsApp, and she was almost in tears as she shared how her mother, so my grandmother, my Nani Ji, used to host spiritual seekers, minstrels you might be able to call them. And you could just hear my mother tearing up as she's now hosting somebody who does a lot of charity work, a lot of music, helps orphans. And I could see her reflecting on the patterns, the habits, the behaviors that her mother had instilled in her. And as I've been on this journey of now hearing my own spirit daughter talk to me, of thinking about what's the family I will be creating, I will be stewarding, I will be shepherding, my appreciations that my parents were just trying to look out for me, sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously, really touches me. Now, do I still get pissed off at least twice a week? Do I still feel tension of, you just don't get it all the time? Am I still working out ways to be able to, what do I share with them all the time? What do I share with them just when they ask, and all these kind of things? Yes. And I know some of you are listening to this right now, and you're like, no, you should share everything. It's except all of you and or none of you and all that kind of jazz. But the fact is, am I gaslighting myself? No, even I am deepening my allowance of all of me. Come on. You're telling me you fully allow, embrace, and celebrate every single part, an inch of your being? Every single part. Am I cynical? Am I skeptical? No. Maybe. Maybe I am it all and nothing at all. Who am I? Which brings us to what I'd like to close on, actually. I've been having more time in solitude recently, and some more time to hear my thoughts. And it's interesting, in this room I'm staying in, there's a white noise machine, darling. This white noise machine. You press a button and it goes shh. But when I switch it off, suddenly my thoughts get louder, and I can hear the parts of me that are saying, hey, should you be doing it this way? Don't you have to do it this way? Don't you have to do all these things? And I'm in this really interesting process of individuation, of learning what is mine to keep and what is mine to let go, and what is mine to discover, and what is mine to create, and what is mine to share, and what is mine to live. And that's what I wanted to talk about with you today. So, do I have any guiding questions? Yeah. If I had one guiding question to finish this conversation with, and I'm having so much fun recording these conversations. Fun? Well, I can't say I felt joy today, but I felt, bliss is not the right word, I felt so alive. I felt so alive today. So alive. So it would mean the world to me if you could share this with somebody who you feel you care about. Just send them the link. And if there's one guiding question, obviously, if you want to work together in a deeper capacity, you know where to find me. And if you don't know where to find me, just message me on Instagram. What's the guiding question? The guiding question is, where, when do you leave allowance on the table? When do you leave allowance on the table? I'm not talking about allowance like pocket money. I'm talking about allowance of allowing the different parts of you, allowing the different parts of other people, allowing, yeah, that's mainly it. When do you leave allowance on the table? Is that it? That's it. When do you leave allowance on the table? And maybe, when can you pick it up more? Am I done? You thought I was done, but I wasn't. So just to wrap up, when do you leave allowance on the table, and where can you pick it up more? That's the question